The clock is ticking for pro-Palestinian protesters at the encampment on the University of Toronto's King College Circle. Demonstrators have till 6 this evening to clear out, or police are authorized to take action. Good afternoon. After 2 months, protesters may have spent their last night on UofT grounds.
The camp must be taken down as a court injunction will take hold this evening. CTV's Rahim Ladani is live on campus this afternoon to bring us the latest. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. We've been speaking with demonstrator organizers earlier today. They tell us that they continue to speak with members who have been living in this encampment for over 2 months now. At this point in time, they say there's been no formal decision on if they will leave peacefully by 6 p.m. However, over the past several hours, we have seen some clear signs where it appears like this encampment will come down. For the past several hours, we've seen demonstrators walk out with garbage bags of their belongings. They've been taking out wooden pallets. And even if you just look at the number of tents, at the height of this encampment, there were nearly 200 tents. This afternoon, there are about 24. And so it appears as if this encampment is going to come down. But in speaking with organizers, they tell us that this does not mean that their fight is over. The court decision yesterday by Justice Marcus Cohen says that the University of Toronto should have control over what happens on its property. That is why he ruled in favor of the university with this injunction. However, he added that students have a right to freedom of speech and that this injunction will not stop protesters from demonstrating throughout the campus. The big difference this time around is that if the 6 p.m. deadline, when that comes, if the encampment has not been cleared peacefully, Toronto police have said that they will now step in and enforce the court's order. The Toronto Police Service says they hope protesters will leave voluntarily to avoid the need for police action. And speaking with organizers, they tell us, though, that this is about their fight for Palestine and that they want the University of Toronto to divest from investing in companies that support Israelis' invasion of Palestine against Gaza and locals. The university, of course, says that this has no basis in fact. Take a listen to what some of the organizers had to say to us this morning.
We as a community, as students who have put our bodies on the line for over 63 days are still in dialogue and in conversation. Everything that we do, we ideally like it for it to be consensus-based. Of course, if we do not or are unable to reach consensus, we will go with whatever the majority decides to do. That being said, we are visibly removing valuables from the encampment. The police has made a statement that they will be coming in to clear us if they need to post 6 p.m. And that is why we are removing personal valuables and our larger items. That being said, a definitive decision has not been made as yet regarding dismantling the encampment.
We know police are going to be here, and we will sort of have to see what happens, but we have been here since day one and been very clear about our demands, and unfortunately, instead of doing the right thing, UofT has called police on their own students.
There are two more things to note. One is that in the judge's decision, he made it very clear that this encampment was not anti-Semitic or did not purvey any hateful speech. That is one. The second is that the organizers of this demonstration are going to be holding a rally this afternoon at 3 in the afternoon. They say it's going to be a solidarity rally right here, and we're expecting labor unions to also attend. If you remember, a few weeks ago, labor unions came out to show their support for the freedom of right to speech. They said that if the university and police want to clear this encampment, they're going to have to go through them first. Well, it appears they're standing by their words, so they're going to be coming at 3 in the afternoon to have a solidarity rally ahead of the 6 p.m. deadline. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan and Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. Still ahead, Hurricane Beryl is tearing through the Caribbean, expected to hit Jamaica as a powerful Category 4 storm. Details coming up a little later in the newscast.
And with an eye on the hurricane and the sky here at home, we take a first look at the forecast. High heat and humidity making a comeback today. And with that, the risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Beautiful start to the day, but what's to come?
It is going to get extremely hot, extremely humid, and that perfect kind of concoction of things to make a thunderstorm. We're not looking at anything extremely severe here in the city, but we are watching for that active weather to push its way down towards us in that midpoint of our afternoon. Right now, temperature-wise, we're at 27. It feels like 34. We're already at 30 through Niagara, feeling like 36. Switching gears, talking about Hurricane Beryl, I want to just touch on that really quickly. We're looking at it kind of making its way towards Jamaica, already impacting Haiti as we head into the afternoon today, and it will sweep its way right across the entire island. As it makes its way towards that western shoreline, eastern shoreline of Mexico, it will start to lose a little bit of its steam, as it naturally does as it makes landfall. But as it does, those winds are still extremely strong at their peak in areas towards that kind of Jamaica through in towards Cancun, we could see those winds upwards of 200 kilometers an hour. So a severe storm set to impact a significant amount of people. Coming up, more on our forecast here at home. But right now, back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. York police have released an image of a suspect vehicle after shots were fired in Markham. Police are searching for this dark gray Acura RDX Type S with dark tinted windows. Investigators say on Monday around 11 p.m., officers responded to the Burr Oak and Mingay Avenue area. A home was struck by bullets, and 2 people say they were shot at by 2 suspects. No injuries were reported. Police say surveillance video shows the vehicle parked at the back of the house, waiting for the victims to return home, and say this is believed to be a targeted incident.
A stabbing near Weston Road in Lawrence has sent 1 person to hospital. Police say the victim is a man who was stabbed before 8:30 last night. His injuries are described as non-life-threatening. There's no word yet on what led to the stabbing, and no suspect information has been released.
No serious injuries reported after a crash involving a TTC bus last night. It happened on Kennedy Road near Ellesmere before 7:30 p.m. Police and paramedics say a total of 8 people were sent to hospital, including 4 from the bus. It sustained damage to a mirror and the bike rack on the front. Police are investigating to determine if a car making a U-turn may have led to the crash.
A by-election has been called in Ward 15, Don Valley West, in November. The seat was officially declared vacant at last week's council meeting, 6 weeks after the death of Councillor Jay Robinson. She had represented Don Valley West for 14 years. Nominations will be open from July 22nd to September 19th. Advance voting will take place October 26th and 27th, with the election set for November 4th.
The union representing LCBO workers and the Crown Corporation are back at the bargaining table today.
The 2 sides have just 2 days left to reach a deal before the strike deadline at 12:01 a.m. on Friday. CTV's John Musselman is in Etobicoke speaking to shoppers and has reaction. John.
Well, Nathan, it's pretty busy at this LCBO outlet in Etobicoke. We talked to a number of customers today. They would say many didn't even know this was a potential labor disruption coming on Friday. Others said they were aware and they're stocking up. Well, negotiations continue. A strike is looming at the province's LCBO outlets. OPSU, the union representing 10,000 workers, will be in a legal strike position at 12:01 a.m. Friday, July the 5th. The LCBO is offering extended hours leading up to a potential strike. It's opening earlier and staying open later to give customers an opportunity to stock up. We spoke with people today about a possible strike.
Not really. I mean, Metro's open, right? They sell most of the stuff. I mean, beside the hard liquor, I don't really drink hard liquor, so most of the regular stuff I can find in Metro. But if I always want something stronger, then I gotta come here, right?
Okay. Stocking up.
I don't think they're gonna do it. Why would they want to do that?
What would it affect you at all? Inconvenience?
I don't think so. I'll figure it out.
Here's a look at how the LCBO plans to deal with a strike. Retail locations will close for a period of 14 days. On Friday, July 19th, after the 14 days, 30 LCBO stores will begin to open for in-store shopping. They will operate 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with limited hours. The union responded to that move, saying, quote, despite the employer's consistent unwillingness to bargain meaningfully, this plan is a dramatic and heavy-handed move at a time when both sides should be working hard to reach an agreement. The union says it's fighting for higher wages, more full-time positions, and it opposes the expansion of alcohol sales at more retail locations. And we can let you know that both sides continue to negotiate, but again, the deadline is 12:01 a.m. on Friday. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. A Toronto court will hear from residents in Elliott Lake about their concerns over radioactive backfill underneath their homes.
As opposed to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission's contention that it is only mine waste when it has been refined, which when you read the legislation does not read that way.
For 3 years, residents have lobbied the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission and the federal government to take issue with radon levels and radioactive backfill buried beneath some properties. Today, the court will hear from residents and the Canadian Environmental Law Association about their concerns over mine waste and the long-term health impacts.
A new poll finds Doug Ford's Conservatives have a sizable lead over Bonnie Crombie's Liberals, but that could change. The Liaison Strategy Survey, done for the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada, shows the PCs with an 11-point lead, but that would drop to a 5-point lead if an election is called early. That drop, while small, would cause regional shifts in support in Northern Ontario, Toronto, and South Central Ontario. The percentage of undecided voters, would jump from 17% to 21%.
If an early election were called, we told Ontarians a couple of quick things about that. One, that the next election is supposed to be in 2026. Two, that this would be the government cutting its mandate a little short by about a year. And then we asked them, how would that impact your vote? Who would you vote for? And what we saw was that lead of 11 points gets a lot smaller. It's only a 5-point lead. That's very narrow, and we actually saw some good fortunes for the PCs in the regional parts of the province turn into losses. So it would be a much tighter race.
The next provincial election is scheduled for June 2026, unless one is called earlier. A former PC backbencher with the Ford government is speaking out about her removal from caucus. Goldie Gamari was ousted last week following what the Premier called repeated lapses in judgment. She came under fire after a virtual meeting with former English Defence League leader Tommy Robinson. The group is widely viewed as Islamophobic. Gamari released a statement calling the decision to kick her out of caucus unilateral and that she is disappointed by the move. However, she says she will continue to support Conservative policies and is committed to her constituents.
Meanwhile, in Newmarket, the province announced support for the development of a mental health hub in York Region.
As the first model of its kind in this region, the York Regional Mental Health Community Care Hub will expand mental health access to mental health care and support for both youth and adults.
Once open, the hub will provide care and support for people 12 years of age and older. Services will be delivered in partnership with local hospitals, community mental health providers, primary care, and first responders. For the first time, a woman has been appointed to lead Canada's military. Lieutenant General Jenny Carignan has commanded troops in Afghanistan, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Iraq, and Syria during 38 years in the Army. In appointing her, the Prime Minister said Carignan's exceptional leadership and dedication to service has been a tremendous asset to our armed forces. She takes over as Chief of the Defense Staff on July 18th, replacing General Wayne Eyre, who is retiring.
The boil water advisory in Halifax has been lifted. The city confirmed drinking water samples meet the requirements by Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change and the Medical Officer of Health. The advisory was issued on Monday evening after untreated water got into the system. It impacted more than 200,000 residents in the Halifax area. A deadly stampede at a religious event in northern India, about 200 kilometers southeast of the capital, New Delhi, has killed more than 100 people now.
Most of them women and children, crushed or trampled. CTV's Judy Trin has the details.
Weeping worshippers at the site of a collapsed makeshift tent where thousands had gathered to hear a Hindu preacher. A stampede occurred near the end of a sermon as worshippers surged towards the stage to get closer to the guru. People started falling on top of each other. Those who were crushed died, said this witness. More than 100 people were trampled to death, their bodies transported to morgues to be identified, while ambulances took dozens of injured to hospital. Many of the victims appeared to be women and children. Exactly what sparked the panic isn't clear, but officials say sweltering heat and overcrowding contributed to the chaos. More than 15,000 people had gathered to honor the Hindu god Shiva at the religious festival, 3 times the amount of people who were permitted. An investigation is now underway. In Parliament, Prime Minister Narendra Modi offered his condolences and said his government would work with state authorities to ensure the injured get help. 200,000 Indian rupees, or more than $3,000 in compensation, are also being offered to the victims' families.
Judy Trin, CTV News.
A deadly hurricane has left a trail of destruction in the Caribbean and is now closing in on Jamaica.
The island has been flattened. The reports that are coming out show a very, very distressing signal.
At least 7 people have died since the storm made landfall in the southeast Caribbean, causing significant damage in Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 3 of those deaths were in coastal Venezuela. Jamaica is next in Beryl's sights, and with a population of more than 2.8 million and a large tourism infrastructure, there is the potential for even greater devastation. CTV's Scott Hurst is following this for us. Scott, let's talk about where the hurricane specifically is at the moment and where it's heading.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Well, heavy rainfall is starting to affect the island as we're seeing the outer bands really take its toll on those 2.8 million people in Jamaica as as the storm bears down on the island. As we've been reporting over the last while, it was taking aim at this island nation. And the latest warning from the National Hurricane Center is that it's advising Jamaicans to find a safe space for at least the next 12 hours as the main portion of the storm is passing near or just over the southern portion of the island over the next few hours. The island will be dealing with multiple life-threatening events during that time. Hurricane-force winds, destructive waves along the coast, coupled with intense storm surge and significant rainfall that could cause flash flooding or landslides. And these conditions may not improve until late night tonight or overnight. That is why they're advising Jamaicans to find that safe space and stay there for quite some time. So what we've been hearing from officials in Jamaica is that they're obviously taking this very seriously, and they imposed a curfew from 6 a.m. local time until 6 p.m. tonight, and that is currently in effect. It's been in effect for several hours, and they went ahead and preemptively declared a disaster area for the entire island, Michelle, for the next 7 days. And so for its part, what we're hearing from Global Affairs Canada, it's advising Canadians to avoid all travel to Haiti, affected by portions of this storm, and also, of course, ongoing gang violence, and all non-essential travel to the Cayman Islands and Jamaica, amongst other Caribbean nations at this time. And we're getting some numbers from Global Affairs Canada in terms of Canadians registered with the Canadian government. Of course, this isn't all Canadians in the region, but we're seeing some 3,000 registered in Haiti, some 1,500 registered in Cayman Islands, and just over 1,600 registered with the Canadian government in Jamaica. And so for Canadians not in the area yet, Global Affairs is advising against travel to the area, but for those who are in the affected areas, take the proper precautions, of course, and stay tuned to local media for any updates and alerts they might need to know about, Michelle.
Scott, there's been much talk about this, a storm of this magnitude forming so early in the year. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, that is the huge concern. It is so big and so early in the hurricane season, and this is all because of much warmer water temperatures, which really allows the storm to intensify much quicker. And researchers are pointing to human-caused climate change combined with cyclical weather patterns as the reason for this early intensity, fueling this storm, but also fueling concern that this could be quite a catastrophic hurricane season. And Michelle, of course, when we talk about the Atlantic hurricane season, right now we're focusing on the Caribbean islands of Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands are in sight next. But the Atlantic hurricane season, of course, affects our maritime provinces as well. So lots of concern throughout this entire Atlantic hurricane season.
We'll be keeping a close eye on it. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
The Toronto Maple Leafs will be hitting the ice today as the 2024 development camp gets underway.
It will give the team's draft picks a chance to show off their skills. CTV's Mike Walker is live at the Ford Performance Center to bring us more. Mike.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, more than 40 players have been invited to this development camp, which includes 17 of Toronto's draft picks. And among those are 6 players who were recently selected in this year's draft.
Toronto selects from the Oshawa Generals Ben Danford.
Days after being selected by the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the NHL draft, Ben Danford will have a chance to show what he's made of. The 18-year-old defenseman from the Oshawa Generals is one of 47 players taking to the ice at the Ford Performance Center today for the Leafs development camp.
The skill set, well, it speaks for itself.
Returning top prospects include Easton Cowan, who was drafted by the Buds 28th overall in the first round of the 2023 draft. The forward was cut from training camp last season. Another notable return is Fraser Minton. The 19-year-old center made the club last year, but returned to junior hockey after playing 4 games. Both prospects are anticipated to challenge for a spot on the Leafs roster.
You know, we think we've got some young players coming.
But GM Brad Treliving has said there are no guarantees for these prospects as the Buds continue to look to bolster their lineup.
At the end of the day, you know, they got to show that they're ready to play in the Man's League, and that's what training camp's for. We think they're great young players, but we certainly don't want to put them in a position to fail.
Haley Wickenheiser, who is the Leafs' assistant GM of player development, will oversee this camp, which includes a practice today and a scrimmage over the weekend.
The Leafs have also invited 22 free agents to this camp, which will get underway in a couple hours from now. We'll also have an opportunity to hear from some of the top prospects and Haley Wickenheiser. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. SpaceX launched the Falcon 9 rocket this morning, carrying another batch of Starlink satellites into orbit.
3, 2, 1, 0, liftoff.
The rocket lifted off just before 5:30 this morning from the Cape Canaveral space station. It was carrying 20 satellites, 13 of them with direct-to-cell capabilities. The satellites were deployed into space about an hour later. The rocket's first stage returned to Earth as planned about 8 minutes after liftoff. It settled down on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This was the 67th Falcon 9 mission so far in 2024. There are more than 6,100 operational Starlink satellites currently in orbit.
Towns and cities across the United States are preparing for Independence Day celebrations tomorrow. In South Florida, the world's tallest digital American flag will light up the 60-story Paramount Miami World Center. The $700 million skyscraper features the most advanced animated lighting system. It's made up of 7 kilometers of wires connected to more than 13,000 light-emitting diodes. The 213-meter building will also ignite an enormous electronic fireworks display. An estimated crowd of 500,000 people are due to show up for the event. Jazz.
Well, for the 3rd of July, quite nice today, a hot and humid one. If you're spending any time outdoors, sun protection and hydration, a really good idea. It will feel into the 30s and that UV index very high at a 10, so the sun's rays are quite strong. And it'll be quite gusty too as we kind of watch this system make its way through towards our mid-afternoon kind of point. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including how long the rain is likely to stick around and what we can expect as we head in towards the end of the week.
Well, it sounds like we're into it now. It's summer vacation, kids maybe in camp or whatever, and we've got the heat now.
You can feel a change in the air. And remember, over the long weekend, at least the beginning of it, it was chilly. A lot of people kind of complaining about that. Well, now we've got the humidity and the heat for several days.
Yeah, the heat is on as we kind of step in towards, well, we're in the middle of the week now, the short week for many, but the humidex values get so intense over the next couple of days. Temperature-wise, it's actually not that bad, but really as we settle into the afternoon today, towards the end of the week, even the weekend, we are looking at humidex values in the mid to upper 30s. So don't let that heat sneak up on you. Prepare yourself accordingly. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Lots of sunshine to start the day, though. Really beautiful shot from the chopper here of the city. Fantastic if you're an early riser. But that humidity was on early in the day, and you could really feel it if you were up and out maybe between about 7 and 9 a.m. The good news is at least there's a bit of a breeze, but it's a hot wind as we step into that second half of our kind of lunch hour. Taking a look at our temperature map, right now we're sitting at 28. It feels like 35, and we are holding on to this heat everywhere. As we step in towards even the evening, we're holding on to those temperatures that are still above seasonal. So through our daytime highs, we're close to where we should be, but for the overnight lows, we hold on to all of that daytime heating. Again, 29 feeling like 37 heading into the afternoon. And right across the board, those humidex values in that upper 30 range, which makes it really challenging if you're spending time outside or you work outdoors. So breaks in the shade, hydration are really, really important part of the recipe to enjoy the weather safely. Into this evening, sitting at 19, again, we should be at 16, and we'll see a little fog as we get through the overnights and into the early morning hours tomorrow, but almost everybody kind of between about 16 and 19 degrees. This line of showers, that's what we're watching. It's going to kind of push its way across southern Ontario as we head throughout the afternoon. And then it moves its way out. So again, not an all-day rain affair. We'll see kind of a pop of showers in the afternoon, and then we get a break as we head into the early evening. Timing it all out again as we kind of get in towards about 2:30 is when it starts to push in to that kind of west end of the GTA, and then it will make its way in towards us right around, you know, that kind of 3 to 4 p.m. window. But it moves relatively quickly, and by honestly about 5, 6 o'clock, the bulk of it is gone. Some scattered showers north and south of us, and then we'll see a little sunshine before the day is all said and done. Into our Thursday, we are looking at a little light cloud cover in and around southern Ontario. The chance of showers lingers because it's still so humid, but we're likely to stay pretty dry. And just some light clouds off and on throughout the day. And this carries us right in towards the end of the week where we see a little more clearing. Again, those base temperatures are not far off from the seasonal norm of about 26, but it feels like 37 as we head into the afternoon. It feels like 34 tomorrow, and it feels like 32 heading in towards Friday. So we are in the thick of kids starting camp. I know there's a lot of folks who work outdoors, or maybe you're picking up temporary work over the summer. Just factor that into your plans for the day: water, sun protection, and breaks in the shade. As we head in towards the weekend, we don't really see too much of a change. We hold on to those above seasonal highs and lows. A little more sunshine on the way. And then as we settle in towards next week, we are going to kind of get back to where we should be, but really it's not until about Tuesday. We still kick things off on Monday at 28 for the high, 19 for the low, and those humidex values likely still in that mid to upper 30 range. So we love the summer season, but it comes at a bit of a price when you have these humidex values that do make it a little challenging to spend some time outdoors. So preparation is key. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So always come with the sunscreen, the water, and maybe a few extra layers just to cover up your arms if you do work outside. Nathan, Michelle, some things back to you.
All right, good advice. Thank you, Jess. Well, just in time for Shark Week, a new documentary is following researchers on a dangerous mission.
They are looking to learn about the ocean's most feared predator, whose numbers could be growing in Atlantic Canada. CTV's Katie Kelly reports.
This is the first picture taken in Canada underwater of a white shark. I took it back in 2020 from a cage.
Dr. Chris Harvey Clark is a lifelong shark enthusiast.
My dad grew up, and his father grew up in the tropics in Jamaica and the Caribbean, and so sharks were a way of life there. So I just grew up with shark stories and sharks basically being around us.
The marine biologist and veterinarian just released a memoir, In Search of the Great Canadian Shark.
I did work using a submarine to find juvenile 6 gills off of downtown Vancouver, which was a first. Filmed the first makos in Canada right here off Halifax in 2001. We did the first blue shark dives in 2000 off of Halifax out in open water. I spent 9 years working on the second largest carnivorous shark on the planet, which is the Greenland.
Next up, a project 4 years in the making. Great White North was filmed in Nova Scotia and will air on the Discovery Channel this Shark Week.
This documentary is really razor focused on white sharks, and particularly all the factors that have led to the increased number of observations of white sharks, what we're seeing and why we're seeing it. It is what really happens in the field, and it's not reality TV. It's what we do when we're out there trying to study these animals.
He's behind the boat. That's a big shark.
This is right out of Jaws. Look at that.
Visually, this is mind-blowing. I mean, we live in a dark, murky ocean up here. This is in the Caribbean. You don't have 100-foot visibility. And what you will see are a lot of really close-up encounters with some really big sharks and then some not-so-big sharks.
Coming in.
Last year, we had a couple of 16-footers and a 15-footer. And I'll tell you, when you see a white shark that size, it takes your breath away. I'm really anti-sensationalism, and I hope people will see the documentary for factual, interesting, a whole new thing, which is white sharks in Canadian waters. And also, you know, we'll appreciate some of the work we're trying to do scientifically that's highly non-invasive. So we're really not trying to rope them, brand them, you know, all that stuff. We're really just trying to study the animals in their environment with the minimum impact on the animals.
Get a dorsal ID shot. Look at this! Great white shark!
Katie Kelly, CTV News.
Coming up, there are new vaccine options to protect little ones from a highly contagious virus that can make babies seriously ill. Details after the break.
The highly contagious virus known as RSV can make babies seriously ill.
There are new vaccine options to protect little ones from it, but as our health reporter Pauline Chan explains, they're not covered by the province.
There's now a few options available. Mothers need to know this. They need to know the risks.
Jessica Cohn's second child, Eitan, was just a month old when he got respiratory syncytial virus from his older brother.
Maybe for you or I, RSV is just a cold, but for a little baby that's 1 month old or newborn, I mean, it's devastating. There's no treatment for RSV. There's no cure for it. So you're just trying to help the baby to breathe. Their airways are so small. It's difficult.
And she spent 2 weeks in Chio in Ottawa while Eitan was seriously ill. But now there are 2 ways to protect infants from RSV. One is a vaccine given during pregnancy. It's known as Abrysvo and is also used to protect older Canadians from RSV.
They want to take it between 32 to 36 weeks. The infants that are of pregnant people right now who will be born in the fall are going to be during the RSV season.
The second option is given after birth, a vaccine known as nirsevimab or Beyfortus.
That can be given after the baby's born, up to 12 years of age if you're healthy, but up to 24 years if you have high-risk disease that could put you at high risk for RSV infection.
But they are not yet covered by the province, and nirsevimab is around $900, although some health plans may cover part of the cost. Dr. Vivian Brown says talk to your doctor about the options.
This is all about shared decision making. Do you want to take a vaccine now as a mother to protect your baby when your baby is born? Or do you want to wait when your baby is born and see if there's a public health program?
And Brown points out that even if the infant vaccine is covered, it may initially be only for those at the highest risk. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
An Ontario doctor accused of killing 4 of his patients has now been acquitted of all charges.
The request to acquit came from the very prosecutors who charged Dr. Brian Nadler in the first place. CTV's Colton Prale explains why.
The day a 5-week murder trial was expected to start, instead was over in 40 minutes.
As His Honor said, the acquittal means that Dr. Nadler is innocent.
Crown prosecutors offered no evidence, asking for an acquittal, resulting in a not guilty verdict. Charged in 2021, Dr. Brian Nadler was accused of first-degree murder and criminal negligence in the deaths of 4 of his elderly patients at the Hawkesbury and District General Hospital. He says they died of COVID-19.
This was a wrong-minded prosecution. It was always our position from the outset that Brian Nadler was innocent of any wrongdoing.
Prosecutors say they were unable to argue their case after a judge ruled testimony by a hematologist was inadmissible, as he didn't qualify as an expert witness on the cause of death. The prosecution saying in court, for all practical purposes, these rulings have decided the verdict of the case against the Crown. The verdict offers little closure to those who knew the victims.
We wanted to hear as much as we could what the rationale was for the decision, but unfortunately there was very little discussion of that.
Nadler would not say if he will return to practicing medicine. His license was suspended when the charges were announced.
By requesting an acquittal, the Crown can appeal the not guilty verdict and the pretrial decision that excluded the evidence they say their case relied on. They have 30 days to file that appeal. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
Calgarians can finally go back to regular water use nearly a month after a major water main first broke. CTV's Mason Depatsi is in Calgary with the update.
Yeah, so those indoor water restrictions are finally being lifted after a month, and that, of course, is being celebrated by many Calgarians. It means ice rinks and city facilities like this pool can reopen later today. It also means businesses can get back to normal, along with the usual water usage, things like showers, laundry, and dishes. Well, the city is telling us to ease back into it, as they don't want to put extra stress on the system, which isn't operating at full capacity quite yet. The
feeder main that's now been fixed is only running at 50% capacity. As the city works to repressurize it, they're doing the process slowly as it is a bit of a risky one, and they want to ensure they don't damage it again. It's also worth noting that the water treatment plant further south in the city has been doing double duty while this other one has been offline, and it now needs maintenance as it's been operating at max capacity for several weeks now. And so the mayor says we aren't out of the woods quite yet, and that's reflected that we still have these outdoor water restrictions along with a fire ban.
CTV News reporter Mason Depatsi in Calgary.
Well, Health Canada has recalled thousands of heat pumps over risk of excessive heat exposure. Amana, Daikin, and Goodman branded pumps are affected by the recall. Last month, Health Canada said power interruptions can lead to the products overheating once power is turned back on. No injuries linked to the products have been reported so far.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the federal government outlines options for blocking Chinese electric vehicle companies from setting up factories in this country. That and the rest of your business headlines after this short break.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Canada is considering blocking market access for Chinese-made electric vehicles.
The federal government is deliberating tariffs and other possible restrictions. BNN Bloomberg's Andrew Bell has more.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. The federal government has outlined options for restricting market access for Chinese-made electric vehicles. They include tariffs on imports and also potentially blocking Chinese investment in new Canadian factories. But so far, Ottawa is not talking about levies on batteries or battery components. US-based Quest Diagnostics is becoming a player in Canadian healthcare with a deal to acquire medical test provider Life Labs. Ontario Municipal Employee Pension Fund OMERS is selling Life Labs to Quest in a deal valued at about $1.35 billion, including debt. And finally, Bloomberg says Russia's government revenue from the oil industry was almost 50% higher in June versus a year earlier as the nation's producers adapt to international sanctions and get higher prices for their crude. Oil-related taxes jumped to almost $7 billion US last month. That's the latest in business from BNN Bloomberg. I'm Andrew Bell.
Loblaw says it's changing its pricing strategy at the No Frills stores to make them more affordable. No Frills is removing multi-buy options such as buy two for $5. The company says it will extend lower prices to more individual items instead. No Frills says the new pricing strategy will complement existing programs aimed at helping customers save money. The change comes as Canada's biggest grocery chains continue to face scrutiny over the high cost of food.
Golf is considered one of the more mild-mannered sports, but that doesn't mean moments of anger can't play out on the course.
CTV's Andrew Johnson shows us who was seeing red on the green.
On a Metro Vancouver golf course, police are investigating a very different sort of swing.
That is shocking. I think those guys should be banned for a year from golfing.
Oh my God. This is what played out in front of stunned golfers whose laughter turned to concern once fists started to fly. The brawl involved several men. A woman was left laying on the ground, injured in front of a golf cart.
I was absolutely arrested watching it. I found myself wondering what could have caused this.
RCMP say the rumble in the rough on Canada Day long weekend was sparked by a serious breach of etiquette. One group had come close to hitting the group ahead of them with a ball multiple times.
If you do that once during a round of golf, you should probably be very judicious from that point afterwards. Like, you know, if you hit into a group once is enough.
Usually, after a near miss, the expectation is the person who swung the club will take responsibility.
The apology wave and, you know, you feel shame.
It's not clear what happened in the moments before someone hit record on this round going sideways. Mounties confirm one person was hurt in the brawl. Paramedics were called in, but no one needed to be hospitalized. Golfers say it's bad behavior that doesn't belong on the fairway.
We're out here to have fun.
Yeah,
and relax.
Enjoy it.
It's beyond ridiculous.
It may, in fact, result in criminal charges. RCMP tell us it's still too early to say. When police arrived to break up the fight, the golfers were separated and escorted off the course. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Canada's Leila Fernandez continued her impressive grass court season, winning over Italy's Lucia Bronzetti in the first round at Wimbledon.
Leila Fernandez made her first grass court quarterfinal last week. Now it's the first grass court final, and it comes on her debut in Eastbourne.
The 21-year-old from Laval, Quebec, won 80% of her first serve and net points, outscoring her opponent 73-57. She joins Bianca Andreescu of Mississauga and Denis Shapovalov of Richmond Hill, who won their first round matches Monday. In the second round, Fernandez, who has never made it past the second round at Wimbledon, will next face Danish wildcard Caroline Wozniacki, a former world #1.
Toronto FC will try to put an end to its losing streak tonight when the Reds face Orlando City. TFC is coming off a 2-1 loss at the hands of Atlanta United on Saturday. It was Toronto's 4th loss in a row, but the club has been winless for even longer. TFC's last MLS victory came back on May 18th. Tonight's game kicks off at 7:30.
The Blue Jays continued their series with the Houston Astros last night.
And he launches it to right field, and it is gone!
The Jays jumped out to a 7-0 lead early, and they needed all of those runs. They ended up winning the game 7-6. The teams will continue their series tonight. Game gets underway around 7:07.
There's new international attention for Toronto's notorious traffic gridlock.
Traffic's too bad in Toronto, so we'll walk into the venue. Go on.
I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500.
Former One Direction singer Niall Horan was complaining about the state of traffic here in a video that was shared online. The Irish singer-songwriter walked to Scotiabank Arena amid gridlock around Bay and Lakeshore. Horan was in town over the weekend for 2 shows.
And coming up, bringing a lovable ogre to the Toronto stage, the debut of Shrek the Musical, and a homecoming for the show's musical director.
Look at that. The next Lotto Max jackpot's an estimated $40 million.
Dream off?
Try designer hedges.
Oh. A backyard observatory.
Front yard lazy river.
Big enough for 2?
Get your Lotto Max tickets today.
When Shrek the Musical comes to town next month, one of its unsung heroes is Harrison Roth.
And as CTV's Andrea Case reports, the young music director got his start right here in Toronto.
When Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey hit the stage in Shrek the Musical, they are doing so to the beat led by Toronto's Harrison Roth. Don't let his youthful appearance fool you. The 22-year-old is the music director of the touring show. Taking a step back from the limelight previously, he too was a stage performer.
I get to sing every once in a while. We've had some karaoke nights with the show and the cast, which is always fun. And I get to sing in rehearsals when I'm teaching some of the music. But ultimately, the conducting, I find that the music direction aspect is so much more collaborative. I get to be able to interact with so many more people across the departments, and I find that very fulfilling.
He likens his role as being at the helm of a ship every night. He credits his time at the Etobicoke School for the Arts and meeting influential teachers, including Michael Vieira, who mentored him along the way.
And he was the one who would take me backstage and into the pit and allowed me to experience these shows amongst the musicians and really see what that was like. And that was by far one of the most pivotal moments in my career.
As young as that career is, Roth continues to find lessons on the road.
Shrek has taught me that accepting our differences is what's going to bring us together.
All the things that make us special. It's a show for the entire family, and his family plans on taking it all in. It's a homecoming of sorts for Harrison Roth. So when Shrek the Musical opens here at the Princess of Wales Theatre on August 6th, he's going to need a lot of extra complimentary tickets. Andrea Case, CTV News, Toronto.
Wow, 22 years old, already a musical director, incredible. Now we have to turn our attention to the sky because right now it's looking good. You might think, oh, let's go outside and stay out, but you do have to be aware that it could get a bit stormy this afternoon.
Yeah, we know that the rain is coming. The question is it going to be a washout? How long is it going to last? Because especially with kids at camp, they don't want to be indoors. They want to be outside.
No, I want to be in the wild. That's what I like to call it. We are watching this kind of coming mid-afternoon. So by no means is it a washout of a day, but these things, because we have that warmer air aloft, cooler air warmer air at the surface, cooler air aloft, you get that intersection, and that's where that potential of some pretty severe weather can take place. And you also have a pretty strong wind. We have southwesterly winds heading into the afternoon with gusts upwards of 50 kilometers an hour. So you put that storm recipe together and it makes a thunderstorm cake. So as we head in towards that second half of our days where we see the potential for that line of showers, that window between 2 and about 4:30 p.m. It's, again, kind of in that sweet spot of probably when you're picking kids out from camp, so just keep that in mind. Temperature-wise right now, we're already at 28. It already feels like 35. In Niagara, it feels like 38. Through Chatham-Kent, through Windsor, feeling like 37. It is extremely humid outside. If you're heading out this evening to barbecue, it's still really hot out there. So as you're getting, the grill going, add in maybe some water. We are looking at this ridge of high pressure, this ridge of warmth kind of sitting over us now. We'll see it dissipate a little bit as we head in towards the weekend. But when you see the reds, the deep reds, the oranges, that's when you know it is super hot, stinking hot, as I like to say. But as we head in towards our Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'll at least see more consistent sunshine. We don't really see a reprieve until Tuesday of next week, and that is just back to seasonal. So the humidex values will be doing what they do. So just take that into account and just enjoy this warm weather safely.
Good advice. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, have a wonderful afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Take care.